Rebecca Chen thought she had it all figured out when she divorced her humble accountant husband Marcus to marry his charismatic best friend Derek, the VP of sales at Chen Global Industries, where she worked as a senior marketing director, but she was completely unaware that her quiet, unassuming husband was actually the secret multi-billionaire who owned the very company she worked for, the empire behind the Chen name that employed 15,000 people across 3 continents. For 3 years of marriage, Marcus had hidden his true identity, living in their modest apartment, driving his 10-year-old sedan, while secretly running a $20 billion corporation from shadow offices. All because he wanted to know if Rebecca loved him for who he was, not what he had. Derek knew everything, had known from the very beginning. And when Rebecca confessed she was leaving Marcus for his best friend, when she signed those divorce papers with relief in her eyes and dreams of Derek's penthouse lifestyle dancing in her head, she had no idea she was walking away from unimaginable wealth and into a trap that would leave her and Derek crushed and devastated by what Marcus did next. But how does a man hide a multi-billion-dollar identity from his own wife for 3 years? What did Derek really want from this betrayal that made him pursue his best friend's wife? And what could Marcus possibly do that would be powerful enough to crush 2 people who thought they had won everything? The conference room on the 42nd floor of Chen Global Industries buzzed with nervous energy as Rebecca Chen adjusted her presentation slides one final time. She'd worked on this campaign for 6 months, countless late nights that Marcus never complained about, even when she came home at midnight smelling of takeout and printer ink. Her husband just smiled that quiet smile of his, asked if she'd eaten, and went back to his laptop where he did whatever accountants did with spreadsheets and numbers. "You're going to crush this presentation," Derek whispered, leaning close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne, the kind that cost more than Marcus spent on clothes in a year. Derek's hand brushed her lower back, a touch that had become familiar over the past 3 months. Ever since that company retreat in Cabo, where they'd stayed up talking on the beach while Marcus video called from home, apologizing that he couldn't make it because of client obligations. Rebecca's phone buzzed. "Marcus, good luck today. I know you'll be amazing. Love you." She typed back a quick, "Thanks," and silenced her phone. Guilt flickered through her chest, but she pushed it down. She'd been pushing it down for 3 months now, ever since she'd realized that Derek saw her, really saw her, in ways Marcus never seemed to. Derek talked about her ambitions, her dreams of becoming CMO someday, maybe even starting her own agency. Marcus just asked if she wanted tea and if she'd remembered to pay the electric bill. The presentation went flawlessly. Rebecca watched the executives nod, saw the CEO, Mr. Harrison Chen, lean forward with interest when she revealed the projected ROI. Everyone called him Mr. Chen, even after 15 years of running the company since the mysterious founder had stepped back from public operations. There were rumors about the real owner, the reclusive billionaire who'd built Chen Global from nothing, but Rebecca had never paid much attention to corporate gossip. "Exceptional work, Mrs. Chen," Mr. Harrison said, and Rebecca glowed under his approval. "The real owner will be very pleased with this campaign direction." Derek caught her in the hallway afterward, his hand finding hers. "Dinner tonight? We need to talk about us." "I can't. Marcus is cooking," Rebecca said, but her resistance was weakening. It had been weakening for months. "Rebecca," Derek's voice dropped low, intimate. "How long are you going to keep pretending? I know he's holding you back. He's a good guy, but he's small. You're meant for bigger things. We're meant for bigger things." That night, Marcus had made her favorite meal, pasta primavera with the exact amount of garlic she liked. He'd set candles on their small dining table, the one they'd bought at IKEA 5 years ago when they'd first married, young and stupid and in love. "I'm so proud of you," Marcus said, raising his wine glass. They were drinking the $12 bottle from Trader Joe's. Derek had taken her to dinner once where the wine cost $300 a bottle. "Mr. Harrison told me your presentation was the best he'd seen in years." Rebecca's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Mr. Harrison told you? I ran into him today," Marcus said quickly, that small smile playing at his lips. In the building, I was visiting a client on the 35th floor. It was plausible. Marcus's accounting firm handled clients all over the city. But something nagged at Rebecca, a detail that didn't quite fit, though she couldn't put her finger on what. "Marcus," she said slowly, setting down her fork, "are you happy? With us? With our life?" His smile faded, and for just a moment, something else flickered across his face. Something that looked like sadness, or maybe resignation. "Are you?" The question hung between them like smoke. Rebecca thought about Derek's penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, about the way he talked about taking her to Milan and Paris, about the life she could have if she just admitted what she'd been feeling for months. "I think we need to talk," she said. Marcus nodded slowly, carefully setting down his own fork. "I think I know what you're going to say." "You do?" "Rebecca, I've watched you pull away for months. I've seen the way you look at your phone when you think I'm not watching. I've smelled his cologne on your work clothes." His voice was soft, not accusing, just tired. "It's Derek, isn't it?" She expected anger. She'd braced for it, rehearsed her explanations. But Marcus just sat there, looking at her with those dark eyes that had once made her feel safe, and now just made her feel trapped. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for it to happen." But it did. Marcus stood up, walked to the window of their modest apartment. Outside, the city glittered with possibilities. "And now you want a divorce?" "Yes." He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a strange note, something Rebecca couldn't quite identify. Okay. She'd expected fighting, begging, something other than this calm acceptance. "I won't fight you, Rebecca. I've never believed in keeping someone who wants to leave." He turned to face her, and in the dim light, he looked different somehow. "Harder. But I need you to be sure. Because once you walk away from this, from us, there's no coming back." "I'm sure," Rebecca said, and meant it. She was tired of small apartments and modest dinners, and a husband who seemed content with mediocrity. Derek offered her the stars. Marcus nodded once. "Then I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. You can have everything, the apartment, the savings, whatever you want." "I don't want your money," Rebecca said, stung. "This isn't about money." Something that might have been a smile crossed Marcus's face. "No? Then what's it about, Rebecca? Love? Passion? Or is it about the fact that Derek drives a Porsche and takes you to restaurants where the appetizers cost more than our monthly rent? That's not fair. Isn't it?" Marcus grabbed his jacket from the chair. "I need to go for a walk. I'll sleep on the couch tonight." As he reached the door, Rebecca called out, "Marcus, I really am sorry. You're a good man. You deserve someone who can love you the way you deserve." He paused, his hand on the doorknob. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I thought I had that once." After he left, Rebecca called Derek. "I told him," she said. "It's over. We can be together." Derek's whoop of joy echoed through the phone. "Finally, Rebecca, I'm going to make you so happy. We're going to have everything, I promise you. Everything." As she hung up, Rebecca felt a flutter of excitement mixed with something else, something that felt uncomfortably like regret. But she pushed it away. She was choosing happiness. She was choosing the life she deserved. She had no idea that the man she'd just left owned the building she was standing in, and 37 other buildings just like it across the city. She didn't know that the company where she worked, where Derek worked, belonged to her husband. She couldn't have known that Marcus had spent 3 years living beneath his means, hiding his identity, all because he'd once been betrayed by a woman who'd loved his money more than him, and he'd sworn he'd only marry again if he found someone who'd love him for himself. And she definitely didn't know that Derek had known. Everything from the very beginning, had befriended Marcus specifically to get close to the company and saw Rebecca as his golden ticket to the fortune he thought he could manipulate her into sharing once they were married. The trap was already closing, and Rebecca Chen had no idea she was standing right in the center of it. 3 months later, Rebecca signed the divorce papers in a lawyer's office that looked exactly like every other lawyer's office she'd ever seen, generic art on beige walls, and the smell of old coffee permeating everything. Marcus sat across from her, looking the same as always in his department store suit and practical haircut, his face calm and unreadable. "That's it then?" the lawyer said, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes who seemed sad about the whole thing. "The divorce will be finalized in 60 days, but as of today, you're legally separated." Marcus signed his name with the same careful precision he did everything else. Rebecca wondered if she should feel something more than this hollow relief, but she was too busy thinking about the celebration dinner Derek had planned, the way he'd promised to take her shopping this weekend for the kind of clothes that belonged in their new life together. "Rebecca," Marcus said as they stood to leave, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Did you ever love me? Really love me?" The question caught her off guard. She wanted to say yes, to soften the blow, but hadn't they both agreed to be honest? "I thought I did," she said carefully, "in the beginning, but I think I loved the idea of you more than who you actually were." He nodded slowly, as if she'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. "And Derek? Do you love who he actually is? Or just the idea of what he can give you?" "That's not fair." "You're right. I'm sorry." Marcus extended his hand, formal and distant. "I wish you happiness, Rebecca. I really do." His hand was warm, familiar, and for just a second, Rebecca felt that nagging sensation again, the feeling that she was missing something important. But then she was outside, and Derek was pulling up in his Porsche, and Marcus was disappearing into the crowd, just another forgettable face on a busy street. "Freedom!" Derek shouted as she slid into the passenger seat. He kissed her hard, possessive, and Rebecca let herself get lost in it. This was right. This was what she wanted. They'd been dating openly for 2 months now, though they'd been together in secret for longer. The office gossip had been brutal at first, whispers about homewreckers and betrayal, but Derek had deflected it all with his characteristic charm. He'd told everyone that Marcus and Rebecca had been separated for over a year, that he and Rebecca had only gotten together after the marriage was already over. It wasn't true, but it was close enough that people believed it. "I have a surprise for you," Derek said as they drove through the city. He bypassed the restaurant she expected, heading instead toward the financial district. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." He pulled up in front of Chen Global's headquarters, the gleaming tower where they both worked. But instead of going to the main entrance, he led her to a private elevator she'd never noticed before, one that required a key card to access. "Derek, what is this?" "I told you I had connections," he said, grinning. "I've been working on something big, Rebecca. Something that's going to change everything for us." The elevator rose smoothly, quickly, past the 42nd floor where Rebecca's office was, past the executive suites on 50, all the way to 60. A floor Rebecca didn't even know existed. The doors opened onto a reception area of stunning luxury, marble floors and art that looked like it belonged in museums. A woman sat at the desk, elegant and professional. She looked up as they entered, and her expression flickered with something Rebecca couldn't read. "Mr. Morrison," she said coolly. "You don't have an appointment." "I know, Sandra, but I was hoping Mr. Chen might have a moment. I have some information he'd be interested in." "Mr. Chen is not available." "The real Mr. Chen," Derek said, his voice taking on an edge. "Not Harrison. I'm talking about the owner, the real owner of Chen Global." Sandra's expression went icy. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Mr. Harrison Chen is the CEO of this company." "Come on, Sandra. I know he's here. I know he keeps an office on this floor. I've done my research." Derek pulled out a folder from his briefcase. "And I have information about some very interesting financial irregularities that I think he'd want to discuss. Unless he'd prefer I take them to the SEC?" Rebecca's stomach dropped. "Derek, what are you doing?" "What I should have done months ago," he said, not looking at her. "Making us rich." Sandra picked up her phone, her movements deliberate. "Security, please come to the 60th floor." Then, to Derek, "You're making a very serious mistake, Mr. Morrison. The only mistake would be not recognizing an opportunity when it's right in front of you. Derek's confidence was unshakable. I know the real owner of Chen Global has been operating in secret for 15 years. I know he's worth at least $20 billion. And I know that he values his privacy enough that certain information about his holdings, his investments, his very existence would be worth a significant amount to keep quiet. You're attempting to blackmail the owner of Chen Global Industries, Sandra said flatly. I'm attempting to negotiate a consulting fee for my discretion. Rebecca backed toward the elevator, her heart pounding. Derek, this is insane. We need to leave. But before they could move, the door to the inner office opened. A man stepped out, and Rebecca's world tilted sideways. It was Marcus. But it wasn't. This Marcus wore a suit that she'd bet cost more than their apartment. His, hairstyled differently, his entire bearing changed. He moved with authority, with power, with the unmistakable confidence of someone who owned everything around him. Hello, Derek, Marcus said, his voice the same but somehow different, colder. Still trying to trade on other people's work, I see. Then his eyes found Rebecca, and something painful flashed across his face. Hello, Rebecca. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Her mind was trying to process what she was seeing, but it didn't make sense. Marcus was an accountant. Marcus drove a Honda Civic. Marcus clipped coupons and worried about the electric bill. Surprise, Derek said, but his confidence had cracked. You didn't think I'd figure it out? I knew you'd figure it out eventually, Marcus said. You've been sniffing around my company for 2 years, Derek. Did you really think I didn't notice? That I didn't know exactly why you befriended me? Why you pursued my wife? Your ex-wife, Derek corrected, but his hand, it was shaking. Marcus's laugh was bitter. Yes, my ex-wife, the woman I loved enough to hide who I was, to live like a normal person, to give her the choice to love me for me. He looked at Rebecca, and she saw the hurt in his eyes, the betrayal. And you chose him. Marcus, Rebecca whispered. I don't understand. I know you don't. You never did. He turned back to Derek. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give Sandra that folder. Then you're both going to leave this building, and you're never coming back. You can't fire me, Derek said. I have a contract. Your contract has a morality clause. Attempting to blackmail the owner of the company constitutes grounds for immediate termination with cause. You'll receive no severance, no references, and if you try to pursue any legal action, I'll bury you so deep in litigation you'll never work again. Derek's face went red. You can't do this. I already have. Security will escort you out. 2 security guards emerged from the elevator. Large men with expressionless faces. Derek's bravado crumbled. Rebecca, say something, tell him. But Rebecca couldn't say anything. She was staring at Marcus, at this stranger wearing her ex-husband's face, trying to reconcile the man who'd made her pasta with the billionaire who owned a corporate empire. Wait, she finally managed. Marcus, please. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know any of this. I know you didn't. His voice was gentler now, but still distant. That was the whole point, Rebecca. I wanted someone who'd love me without knowing about the money. And for a while, I thought you did. He paused. But you didn't love me. You loved the idea of escape. You loved ambition and status and the life you thought Derek could give you. I made a mistake, Rebecca said, tears streaming down her face now. Marcus, I was stupid and selfish, and I'm so sorry. You're sorry you left an accountant. Would you be sorry if you'd known you were leaving a Baction? Billionaire? The question hung in the air, impossible to answer honestly. Derek made a lunge for Marcus, but the security guards caught him easily. You did this on purpose, he shouted. You knew I was getting close to Rebecca. You could have told her the truth, could have saved your marriage, but you just watched it happen. Yes, Marcus said simply. I watched you manipulate her. I watched you use our friendship to get to my wife. I watched you pretend to care about her when all you really wanted was access to money you thought she'd have after we divorced. He looked at Rebecca. Did he tell you about his gambling debts, Rebecca? The $200,000 he owes to some very dangerous people? Did he mention that's why he needed to get close to my fortune? Rebecca felt like she might be sick. No, of course not. Just like I didn't tell you who I really was. We all have our secrets. Marcus nodded to the security guards. Get them out of here. As the guards moved, he forward. Derek thrashing and shouting threats. Rebecca found her voice one more time. What happens now? To me? Marcus looked at her for a long moment. You work for Chen Global, Rebecca. You're a talented marketing director, and your work has value. So you'll come in on Monday, you'll report to your new supervisor, and you'll do your job. Nothing changes professionally. And personally? Personally, Rebecca, you made your choice. You divorced me for a man who was using you. You chose status over substance. So personally, we're done. Completely done. He turned back toward his office. Sandra will validate your parking. The elevator ride down was silent, except for Derek's continued ranting. Rebecca didn't hear any of it. She was thinking about every moment of the last 3 years, every conversation, every modest dinner, every time Marcus had smiled that quiet smile and said he was just happy to be with her. He'd been testing her, testing whether she could love him without the insert tile, money. And she'd failed spectacularly. When they reached the ground floor and the security guards released them with warnings never to return to the 60th floor, Derek immediately started plotting. We can sue him, he said. Alienation of affection. Something. He was manipulating both of us. Stop, Rebecca said. What? Just stop, Derek. It's over. We lost. We were both so busy chasing what we thought he had that we never saw who he actually was. I don't care who he actually is. He's worth $20 billion. And there it was. The truth laid bare. Derek had never loved her. He'd loved what he thought she could get him. And Rebecca, who'd thought she was so much smarter than that, had been just as guilty. She'd left Marcus not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't think he could give her the life she wanted. I need to go, she said. Where? I don't know. Anywhere but here. She walked away from Derek, from the building, from everything she'd thought she wanted. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your final paycheck has been direct deposited, including severance. Your personal items will be mailed to you. Don't contact me again. Rebecca sank onto a bench, staring at the message. Marcus had fired her too. Of course he had. How could he work with her after everything? How could he look at her every day and remember how she'd betrayed him? Another text came through, this one from Derek. I can't believe you're just giving up. We could have had everything. Rebecca blocked his number. She'd already given up the only thing that mattered, and she'd done it 3 months ago when she'd signed those divorce papers. She'd given up a man who'd loved her enough to give her the choice, who'd valued her happiness over his own secrecy, who'd let her go rather than trap her with money. The city moved around her, indifferent to her pain. Somewhere up in that tower, Marcus was probably already back to running his empire, moving on with his life like she'd never been part of it. And Rebecca sat on a bench with nothing, having traded everything real for a fantasy that had never existed at all. She'd thought Derek would give her a better life. Instead, he'd given her the truth about herself, and it was crushing her. The realization of what she'd lost, who she'd become, left her completely devastated. The weeks that followed were the darkest of Rebecca's life. She moved back to her parents' house in New Jersey, a humiliating regression that her mother was too kind to comment on directly, but managed to convey through significant looks and carefully worded questions. The news of Marcus's true identity had broken in the business press, a carefully orchestrated revelation that painted him as a reclusive genius who'd been operating behind the scenes for 15 years. There was no mention of Rebecca, no hint of the personal drama, just the story of a brilliant entrepreneur who'd chosen privacy over publicity. Rebecca spent hours searching for information about him online, piecing together the story she'd been too blind to see when they were married. Marcus Chen had founded Chen Global at 23, using money from a tech startup he'd sold after graduating from MIT. He'd grown it exponentially, making smart acquisitions and strategic investments, building an empire that now employed 15,000 people. He'd never married before, Rebecca had kept his personal life intensely private, had been known in business circles as the ghost CEO who ran everything from behind the scenes while letting executives like Harrison Chen be the public face. The photo in the business articles showed the Marcus she'd seen in that 60th floor office, confident and powerful in expensive suits. But when Rebecca looked closely, she could still see traces of her Marcus, the one who'd made her pasta and asked about her day. That person had been real too. He'd just been a version of himself that he'd created specifically for her, a test she'd failed. Her phone rang. Derek's number, which she'd blocked and which he was apparently calling from a new phone. She sent it to voicemail. He'd called 17 times in the past week, leaving increasingly desperate messages. The gambling debts Marcus had mentioned were apparently very real, and the people he owed were not patient. Derek had thought marrying Rebecca would solve his problems, that she'd somehow give him access to Marcus's wealth. Now he was realizing that he'd burned every bridge for a fantasy. Rebecca couldn't feel sorry for him. She had her own bridges to mourn. Her email pinged, a message from an address she didn't recognize, but when she opened it, her breath caught. It was from Marcus's assistant, Sandra. Miss Chen, it read, formally using her married name even though the divorce was now final. Mr. Chen has asked me to inform you that your marketing campaign for Chen Global's expansion into European markets is moving forward. The creative work you did before your departure was exceptional, and Mr. Chen believes in giving credit where credit is due. Your name will appear on all associated materials, and you'll receive the standard performance bonus for successful campaigns. Rebecca stared at the email. Marcus was still using her work, still acknowledging her contributions. Even after everything, he was being fair to her professionally. It would have been easy for him to bury her work, to have someone else take credit, to pretend she'd never existed. But he hadn't. She typed a response, "Thank you. And Sandra, if you speak with Mr. Chen, please tell him I'm sorry. For everything." The response came back almost immediately. "I'll pass that along, though I'm not sure it matters now. For what it's worth, Miss Chen, he really did love you. I've worked for Mr. Chen for 10 years, and I've never seen him risk so much for anyone else." Rebecca closed her laptop and let herself cry. She cried for the marriage she'd thrown away, for the man she'd undervalued, for the person she'd become without realizing it. She'd thought Marcus was holding her back, that his modest lifestyle was a lack of ambition. But the truth was that Marcus had been ambitious enough to build a $20 billion empire and humble enough to set it all aside for a chance at real love. And she'd been too shallow, too focused on surface appearances to recognize what she had. Her mother found her on the back porch that evening, staring at the sunset. "You want to talk about it?" "I don't think I can," Rebecca said. "I don't think I can explain how badly I messed up. Try me." So, Rebecca told her everything. About Marcus and Derek, about the deception and the divorce, about the man she'd married who'd turned out to be someone completely different. Her mother listened without interrupting, her face growing more concerned as the story unfolded. "Baby," she said when Rebecca finally finished, "you didn't marry someone different. You married exactly who he was. You just didn't look deep enough to see it." "What do you mean?" "I met Marcus, remember? At your wedding. And I remember thinking he was one of the kindest men I'd ever met. The way he looked at you, like you were his whole world. The way he listened when you talked, really listened. Your father noticed it too. We thought you'd found someone special. He was special. I just didn't realize how special. So what are you going to do about it?" Rebecca shook her head. "There's nothing to do. He's done with me." He was clear about that. Was he, or was he just hurt? Her mother squeezed her hand. "Rebecca, I'm not saying you can fix this. Maybe you can't. But you owe it to yourself and to him to try. Not because you know he's rich now, because you finally understand what you lost." The words rattled around in Rebecca's head for days. Could she try? Should she? What would she even say? "I'm sorry I divorced you, but now that I know you're a billionaire, I've changed my mind," was laughably transparent. And it wasn't even true. Rebecca was sorry, genuinely sorry, But not because of the money. She was sorry because she'd spent 3 years with an extraordinary man and only seen the ordinary parts. She'd looked at Marcus and seen limitations, when she should have been seeing strength. 2 weeks after the email from Sandra, Rebecca made a decision. She got dressed in her best interview suit, took the train into the city, and walked into the lobbies of 7 different marketing firms. By the end of the day, she had 3 interviews scheduled. She needed a job, needed to rebuild her life, needed to prove to herself that she could make it on her own merit. At the 3rd interview, the hiring manager looked at her resume and frowned. "You worked at Chen Global? Why did you leave?" Rebecca had practiced this answer. "Personal reasons, but I'm proud of the work I did there, and I'm ready for my next challenge. Chen Global is one of the best companies in the industry. We'd be lucky to have someone with your experience." The woman leaned forward. "Can I ask you something off the record?" "Sure. Is it true what they say? That the owner is this reclusive genius who's been hiding in plain sight for years?" Rebecca smiled sadly. "Yes, it's all true. What's he like? What was Marcus like?" Rebecca thought about the man who'd cooked her dinner every night, who'd never complained about her late hours, who'd supported every dream she'd ever mentioned. She thought about the empire he'd built while still making time to ask about her day. She thought about the fact that he'd loved her enough to risk everything, to test whether she could love him back. "He's extraordinary," Rebecca said quietly, "and I was too stupid to see it." The interviewer looked at her curiously but didn't press. Rebecca got the job. 3 months into her new position, Rebecca was working late when her personal email pinged. Another message from an unknown address. She almost deleted it, assuming it was Derek with yet another burner email, but something made her open it. "Rebecca, this is Marcus. I hope you're well. I've been following your career from a distance. Sandra tells me you're doing excellent work at Morrison & Associates. I'm glad. You deserve success on your own terms. I'm reaching out because I've started a scholarship fund for women pursuing careers in marketing and business. I'd like to make the first one in your name. Not because of who you were married to, but because of the talent you have. You don't need to respond to this email. I just wanted you to know that I don't hate you. I'm disappointed in how things ended, but I don't hate you. I hope you find what you're looking for. M." Rebecca read the email 3 times, tears blurring her vision. A scholarship in her name. Marcus was still supporting her, still believing in her professional abilities, even after she devastated him personally. It was so perfectly Marcus, so characteristic of his quiet generosity, that she felt her heart break all over again. She started to type a response 12 times, deleting each attempt. What could she say? "Thank you" felt inadequate. "I'm sorry" was too late. "I love you" was probably no longer true in the way it needed to be. Finally, she wrote, "Marcus, thank you for the scholarship, for the trust, for everything you tried to give me that I was too blind to accept. You were right about what you said in your office. I loved the idea of escape more than I loved you. But I want you to know that I see clearly now. I see what I had and what I threw away. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just need you to know that you were never the problem. I was. I hope you find someone who deserves you, someone who sees you for who you are from the beginning. R." She sent it before she could second-guess herself. The response came 2 hours later. "Thank you for that. It means more than you know. I've been in therapy for the past few months, working through some things. My therapist asked me what I learned from our marriage. I told her I learned that love requires honesty from both people. I wasn't honest about who I was, and you weren't honest about what you wanted. Maybe we were both playing roles for each other. Maybe in another universe, 2 different versions of us could have made it work. But in this one, we couldn't. I'm working on forgiving myself for the deception. I hope you're working on forgiving yourself too. We both made mistakes. We're both human. M." Rebecca printed that email and put it in her nightstand drawer. She read it on the hard days when the guilt threatened to overwhelm her. Marcus was right. They'd both been playing roles. She'd been playing the supportive wife who didn't care about money while secretly resenting every modest choice they made. He'd been playing the humble accountant, while running an empire. Neither of them had been honest enough to build something real. 6 months later, Rebecca was at a marketing conference in Chicago when she saw him across the hotel lobby. Marcus, talking with a group of executives, commanding attention in a way he never had when they were married. Or maybe he always had, and she just never noticed. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus excused himself from his group and walked over. Rebecca. Marcus, up close, he looked different. Older, maybe, or just more settled into who he really was. How are you? I'm okay. Good, actually. I got promoted last month. Associate director. I heard. Congratulations. His smile was genuine. You're building something real. I'm trying. She hesitated. How are you? Stupid question. You're probably exactly the same. Actually, I'm not. He glanced around the busy lobby. Do you have time for coffee? They sat in the hotel bar, surrounded by the noise of the conference, and talked for an hour. Marcus told her about stepping into the public role of CEO, about how strange it was to be known after all those years of anonymity. He told her about the philanthropy work he was expanding, about the scholarship fund that now supported 20 women in business programs across the country. Rebecca told him about her job, about the campaigns she was proud of, about slowly rebuilding her confidence. She didn't mention Derek, and Marcus didn't ask. I've been thinking about what you said, Marcus finally said. About seeing clearly now. The thing is, Rebecca, I don't think either of us was seeing clearly back then. I was so focused on testing whether you loved me for me that I never stopped to ask if you even knew who me was. How could you love someone you didn't really know? I knew the important parts, Rebecca said. You were kind and patient and generous. You cared about people. You listened. Those weren't fake, Marcus. Those were real. But they weren't enough. No, she admitted. They weren't. And that says terrible things about me. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Or maybe it just says you wanted a partner who was honest with you. I wasn't. I was running an experiment, and you were the subject. That wasn't fair. You were protecting yourself after what happened with whoever came before me. His eyebrows rose. How do you know about that? I did some research, found an article about a lawsuit from 8 years ago. A woman claiming you'd promised her money if she married you, that you'd lied about your wealth. Anna. Marcus's jaw tightened. She was working for a competitor, trying to get insider information. When I found out, she claimed we had an agreement. We didn't. But it made me paranoid about ever trusting anyone again. So you decided to test the next person by pretending to be poor. By pretending to be normal, not poor. Just ordinary. He met her eyes. I wanted someone who'd love me without the complications of money. But maybe that was impossible. Maybe money is always going to be a complication, whether you have it or hide it. Rebecca wanted to disagree, to tell him it was possible that she could have loved him without knowing. But she'd already proven that she couldn't. I'm sorry, she said, for not being who you needed. I'm sorry for not being honest about who I was. Marcus finished his coffee. But maybe we needed this. Maybe we both needed to fall apart to figure out who we really are. Have you figured it out? I'm working on it. He stood up. It was good to see you, Rebecca. Really. Take care of yourself. Marcus, wait. She stood too. Can I ask you something? Sure. Was any of it real? The marriage, the love, any of it? He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw the same pain in his eyes that she felt in her chest. All of it was real, he said quietly. That's what makes it hurt so much. He walked away and Rebecca let him go, because that was the truth, finally spoken out loud. They loved each other in their imperfect, incomplete way. But love without honesty, without really seeing each other, wasn't enough to build a life on. Rebecca stayed at the bar for another hour, thinking about choices and consequences, about the price of ambition and the cost of deception. She'd wanted a bigger life, and she'd gotten one, just not in the way she'd imagined. She'd lost a husband and gained perspective. She'd lost security and gained independence. She'd lost everything she'd taken for granted and learned what actually mattered. It was the most expensive education she'd ever received, and she'd paid for it with her marriage. Somewhere up in that hotel, or back in New York, Marcus was paying his own price, learning his own lessons. They'd both been crushed by the weight of their choices, both left devastated by the gap between who they'd pretended to be and who they really were. And Derek? Last she'd heard, he'd declared bankruptcy and moved to Florida to escape his creditors. He'd gotten exactly what he deserved, which was nothing at all. Rebecca finished her drink and went back to the conference. She had a presentation in the morning, clients to impress, a career to build. She had a life to live, one that she was creating on her own terms, without shortcuts or delusions. It wasn't the life she dreamed of when she was married to a secret billionaire, but it was hers, honestly earned, and that mattered more than she'd ever imagined it could. She was finally seeing clearly, even if the view showed her everything she'd lost.